taking our youth from us. Young people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are dying needlessly. One of the hardest messages I've ever had to deliver is to convince people that something natural like Extendivite should be taken as a preventative measure. I'm sure you heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Extendivite is that ounce. Take Extendivite for 1 year and see what your doctor has to say and how much better you feel. Herbs take time to address the problem. It took years of life to have a problem. Give Extendivite 1 year to fix the problem. Don't wait until it's too late. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or visit us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendova.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, March 26, 2019, and we have got lots and lots of stuff to talk about today. So the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions here. So let's get right on into it. We are still seeing the fallout from the final Robert Mueller report. And this is going to drag on for a while because the Democrats just can't let go. For 2 years, they have believed there was collusion because the Empress Hillary said there was, and they were counting on the Mueller report to be the final nail in the coffin of the evil Count Vladimir Trump. And it didn't work out. And as is typical of liberal snowflakes, they can't get over it. But the bottom line here is the special counsel's investigation did not find that the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign. Now, that's basically not guilty on all counts. This was just a big lie, you know, and we were hearing from the media that Donald Trump was Putin's poodle. He was an agent of the Kremlin. He was guilty of treason. He was an illegitimate president who would leave the White House in handcuffs and end his days in prison. Not going to happen. And, of course, the corporate media and the Democrats are moving the goalposts again to their fallback position that Mueller did not exonerate Trump of obstruction of justice, except that Mueller wasn't obstructed. Nobody impeded his labors. Apparently, he said in his report that while he could not exonerate Trump of obstruction, he found no evidence of that either. And Attorney General Barr said, yeah, there's no grounds here for a charge of obstruction. And so the Democrats are out there demanding the release of the full report. They want to go through it with a magnifying glass and tweezers, and they're just going to find something in there to revive their dream of getting Trump out of that White House. Anyway, we're hearing that when Trump first got news of Robert Mueller's report from the Barr memo, apparently he was alternately angry, elated, and frustrated, and apparently, yeah, that's how he should feel. He got put through 2 years of the ringer over this mess, and this part is over. There are still other investigations. The Democrats are still out there trying to find ways to attack him or his family, but this was the big one. This was the big career-ending, rewrite the history books, destroy his legacy, the Russia collusion investigation. It is now gone. And so Donald Trump should be feeling energized and emboldened. And now he's got a chance to recast the story of his presidency. He's still got not quite 2 years, but he's got some time to maybe bring about some of the changes he promised us when he campaigned. Now, just as Trump did on election night in 2016, Trump won a victory over the conventional wisdom of his critics, which again shows they really weren't very wise at all. But Trump is vindicated. Everybody who doubted the collusion story, they're vindicated. Everybody who pushed the collusion story now has egg all over their faces, and they're looking for ways to try and get it off. All right, let's take a quick phone call. Tony in Puerto Rico, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Listen, all the things that are going on with Israel, I have a feeling, Mike, that Israel is getting ready to build the next temple. What do you think?
Well, they've been talking about it for years, and I think that's one of the reasons for the escalating incursions onto the Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa. But if they move to demolish the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that will definitely set the entire Mideast on fire. And is Israel willing to do that? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Certainly, there are a lot of religiously fanatical Israelis who are out there saying, yes, let's do it. We must have our third temple, which is kind of weird because there's actually been 3 temples. And when the Messiah didn't show up after the third one, it was sort of retroactively declared to have just been a refurbishment of the second temple. And the real historical irony is that even Israeli archaeologists are saying the real location of the first temple is actually about 250 yards to the southeast, and that big platform that's at the top of that hill is actually the remains of a Roman fort, and the Muslims simply built on top of it.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. We're talking about the backlash from the release of the Robert Mueller report and William Barr's memo on it. And again, the Democrats just can't let go. But obviously, Donald Trump is feeling vindicated. All the people who questioned Russiagate are feeling vindicated. All those who were pushing Russiagate, they're embarrassed and humiliated, and they're trying to find some way to recover their reputations and credibility. Good luck on that one. So basically, what we can conclude from the last 2 years, this whole Russiagate story was a hoax cooked up by an utterly corrupt and immoral military security complex determined to protect its trillion-dollar annual budget and the power that goes with it from the loss of its Russian enemy to normalized relations. That was the military-industrial complex motive for all of this. Trump wanted to normalize relations with Russia. No, we need them so we can sell weapons. We need more wars. And also, we can conclude that Hillary's Democratic National Committee was party to this crime, assisted by people like Gerald Nadler and Adam Schiff, and they have succeeded in destroying the reputation and credibility of the Democratic Party. And let us not forget, if you want to look at interference in the 2016 election, let's look at the way the primaries were rigged to steal the Democratic nomination for Hillary Clinton away from Bernie Sanders. And let's look at all the evidence that was found of massive election fraud favoring Hillary Clinton in the general election, including all the illegal immigrants who were voting. It's a crooked system. We can now reasonably conclude that the U.S. corporate media is devoid of all integrity, all morality, all truthfulness, and they have forever discredited themselves as a source of objective and accurate information and facts. So that's the end result of that. All right, another phone call here. Jim in Chicago, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, Michael, a couple of things. Regarding what happened today in Chicago with the Smollett case, this is exactly what has been reported, but even though not by everyone, the state's attorney, her name is Kimberly Fox, she was getting pressure from the Smollett family, Michelle Obama, and the wife of Mayor Ron Emanuel. They all are very close to Smollett and his family, and they were putting pressure on the state's attorney to drop all charges, and they were successful.
Yep.
That's all I can say.
It's the Chicago way.
So, well, not only Chicago way, but other parts of the country.
Well, you know, of course, Smollett held a press conference, came on out and said, I didn't lie. I really was attacked. It was exactly as I said. I would never do anything like that. That prompted the prosecutor's office to issue their own statement saying, we are still convinced he filed a false police report. But yeah, obviously a lot of Jews had to be applied to get him off the hook on that one. And by the way, the judge that was going to be presiding in that case was an Obama appointee.
Right, which does not surprise me. And not only that, the grand jury, they indicted him on 16 charges.
Yes.
So.
And they've all been dropped.
Yep. Right.
And it sets a bad precedent because it's sending out a message. You can fake a hate crime, and as long as it serves the conventional political agenda of incitement to racism and so forth, nothing will happen to you. You know, you can go on out and you can stage a fake hate crime, and even if you're caught, you will not be punished. And that means there's going to be more fake hate crimes.
There you go. And finally, regarding the situation with Mueller and Barr, you know, I have mixed feelings about it, but this is something that people have to remember. Donald Trump has had a relationship with the Russians ever since the late 90s, good or bad. And I don't know if they felt like they could just, you know, manipulate him, or he feels like he wants to be friends with them. I don't know. But again, I'm not really quite sure which way to think as far as the Barr letter that he sent out.
Well, there was an oblique reference to possible charges against Clinton operatives, and that's why I think the Democrats' call for the release of the full report could blow up in their face. They could be easily hoisting on their own petard.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, Michael, you take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. So anyway, it's Trump and his people. It's their turn at bat. And so we're hearing calls for investigate the investigators. And the GOP is now going on the offense as well they should. They're going after Jim Comey, Loretta Lynch, James Clapper, and all these other people who are involved in this Russiagate story. And that includes a lot of people in the media, people out in Hollywood. This was a huge, huge hoax. It was a conspiracy theory on their part. And how dare these people sit there and scream that those of us who doubted the Russiagate hoax, that we were the conspiracy theorists. Turned out we were the ones with the facts. We were right. They were wrong. Deal with it. So basically, a senior White House official told Daily Mail on Monday, if we're all serious about getting to the truth and not just scoring political points, we're really going to have to investigate the investigators after something this far-reaching falls apart. You know, this, to me, is starting to feel like the biggest political scandal since Watergate. It really, really is. Now, Steve Bannon is out there saying that Donald Trump is going to go full animal against his enemies with the Mueller probe. I certainly hope Steve Bannon is right, and I would encourage Trump to go full animal, because if he does not make an example of these people, they're going to come back. They still have another year and a half to come up with some fabricated accusation to try and kick him out of the White House in 2020. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Bill in Wisconsin, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Mike. On Friday, when the Mueller summary was introduced, what was the date?
I don't have a calendar in front of me. Let's see.
Okay,
That would have been
3/22.
22nd, yes.
3/22.
Yeah.
Now, those of your listeners that are familiar with Skull and Bones that is a very important numerical number, 322.
I think you're reaching.
Watching Tim Russert in the year that George Bush W. ran against, what's his name, Kerry, and Russert pointed out, you're both 322 members of the Skull and Bones. And isn't that a secret organization? And both of them kind of laughed it off and said, it's so secret, we're not going to talk about it. So there is another theory that's being put out.
Yeah.
That on the date of 322, Trump made peace with the deep state. Okay, it's something to consider.
Yeah, I considered it, and then I threw it in the circular file. Okay? Because
he has a lot of things that he
Bill, you're not listening
do.
to me. Okay? I think you're
go
really
ahead.
reaching here, and I've had this theory sent to me by a bunch of people that Robert Mueller and William Barr made some kind of a deal with Donald Trump, and it just doesn't seem to pass muster, because if Trump knew that he'd done nothing, then all he had to do was sit back and let the investigation implode, which is exactly what happened. I mean, why would Barr and Mueller make a deal with Donald Trump if they had the goods on him? That was their job, after all. I mean, everybody in that deep state, they wanted Trump out.
On your show, Michael.
They wanted Trump out.
Okay, he appointed Alex Acosta, Secretary of Labor.
Bill. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Where your logic falls apart is there's a lack of motive. There's a lack of motive for Mueller and Barr to make any kind of a deal if they had the goods on Donald Trump. Okay? Because the end result of this revelation, and we knew all along there wasn't going to be anything there. This is a huge embarrassment to the FBI, to the Department of Justice, to even the CIA, the corporate media. Nobody wins out of this except Donald Trump. And
except for Israel. And if Donald Trump goes to war for Israel, then that's who is the winner, as usual.
Okay, well, Bill, I think you're really making a reach out there to try and tie this into Skull and Bones. And to the best of my knowledge, Trump himself is not a member of Skull and Bones. That's one of the reasons
I know he's not
an outsider.
He didn't go to Yale.
Yes.
Okay, but that doesn't mean he won't make a deal.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing a motive for a deal. I'm not seeing a motive for a deal on the part of Mueller and Barr. Okay, this is
Alex Acosta.
Bill.
Okay, and Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay, Bill. All right, listen. We're going to let you go. Thank you for the phone call. I don't appreciate people who call on in to push their agenda and won't sit back and let me respond. Where is the motive? This Mueller report is an epic fail for the Democrats, for the corporate media, for every government institution involved in it. This is turning out to be the biggest scandal since Watergate. There's no motive on their part to make a deal that destroys themselves so badly. The Democrats are going to be living with this epic fail right up to the 2020 elections. So, no, I'm not buying all these alternative theories about, Trump did collude with Russia, but there's been a deal to hide it from you, the American people. They're desperate. This is desperation on the cusp of madness to put out these ideas. They can't let go of it. That's the problem. They can't let go of it. They won't admit they were wrong all this time. They won't admit that they themselves got sucked up into this gigantic hoax. And they're desperate. They're desperate to find something they can cling to say, I was right all along. I was right all along. Well, one of the stair steps to maturity is being able to admit when you have been wrong. And we're seeing some of the people involved in Russiagate are taking that step. We're getting a few people who are turning around, like Brennan. Then we're seeing others who are not, like over at CNN. They're out there still trying to take the high ground. We're going to get into that in a little bit later in the show here. And Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton joined Congressman Devin Nunes and Byron York of the Washington Examiner. And basically, they're saying they've known all along there was no collusion. And that's why Mueller was given this broad range by Rosenstein. They couldn't find the collusion. They were desperate to find something else. And now the House Democrats are going to are conducting an even wider investigation, just desperate to find something to justify all of this. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington, too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? I've always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy. But I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the seven seas, yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And yes, we do need your help here. And right now, look at the good work that we've been doing over the last 2 years. We were right. The corporate media was wrong. Corporate media's got all the money, which is why we need your help, because they're going to come after us now. Their their reputation and credibility are rock bottom, and the only way they can try and get their audience back is to find some way to just drive the independent media out of business, going after our advertisers, just trying to get politicians to pass laws saying you can't run an internet broadcaster without all this regulation and towing the line and so forth and so on. So, yeah, think of it as a well-earned reward for Republic Broadcasting and whatreallyhappened.com. The postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can call in with a debit or credit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. And before we go back to the phones here, I just got an email referencing the caller going on about 322, and it says you should demand that he tell you his horoscope sign. We have some very smart people listening to this show. All right, we've got some more callers on the line. Joe in California, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. Mike, is this correct? All the charges against Smollett have been dropped?
Yes.
I knew it. Well, I think the people of Chicago, or at least some of the people in Chicago, have something to worry about, because according to Smollett, he's telling the truth, and if he is, there are two MAGA hat-wearing, bleach and rope-carrying racists on the prowl going after half-black, half-Jewish homosexuals.
Well, again, despite Smollett's press conference in which he reasserts his story is absolutely true, the prosecutor has issued a statement saying that even though the charges were dropped, apparently under political pressure, that they still believe, they're still convinced, rather, that he filed a false police report.
Well, if any of them are listening in Chicago, I would be careful going out at the local subway at 2 a.m. Just be careful. Mike, on Trump, somebody had said, I read somewhere that they had said, will he now pardon Manafort and Stone? I know Stone hasn't yet been convicted of anything. He's been charged. But will he now pardon Manafort, and can he pardon Stone preemptively? Because those two were Manafort was convicted of charges that were completely unrelated to the investigation.
Yeah, and there were some indications that he was actually railroaded into that situation, because when he was being interviewed by the FBI, they didn't say this is an official FBI interview. And so, he was sort of off of his guard. He thought they were just chit-chatting back and forth. But they took his words and said, oh, he's obviously lied here. I think Trump should. I think Trump should have pardons for everybody who got caught up unjustly in this Mueller investigation, this wide fishing net that he cast on out there. And maybe not a pardon. That would be politically reckless to do. But Trump can commute the sentences and say, let him out.
Right.
Okay, and I think that would be a good thing to do.
A bad sign is, though, on the foreign policy side, I did see on the Ron Paul report, Trump's Syria envoy has said that they will maintain their presence in Syria. The U.S. troops will remain in Syria, and they will continue to just vet Syrian rebels that are palatable to the administration to continue this regime change project against Assad.
Well, John Bolton right now is basically running U.S. foreign policy, along with Mike Pompeo. But now that Trump is out of the Russiagate situation, it would be nice if he would stand up and say, okay, my desk is clear. I'm now going to be taking back foreign policy. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching Donald Trump in the coming few weeks to see if we're going to see a change in his behavior, or if he's just going to go on being this easily manipulated, weak leader that we've seen for the last 2 years. personally, I think, if he has any chance of a second term, he's got to put on those presidential brass knuckles, and he's got to start doing the work.
Just two more points. I said a long time ago, I keep hearing the Syria war, it's winding down. I said a long time ago, the U.S. and the West, they will never leave Syria. There's just too many. There's the Hezbollah link that's involved with Iran, where Syria is used as that transit
It's simpler
area.
than that. It's simpler than that. The U.S. doesn't want to admit they lost another war.
Right.
Anyway, Joe,
and the oil and the Golan.
And the Golan. Okay, Joe, we got to let you go. Got to take another break for
Thanks,
commercials.
Mike.
We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phones. Frank in North Carolina. Aloha, Frank. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you. Mike, two or three things, if I may. One is, I I was listening to an interview last night with Joel Skousen, and he stated, and I'm very skeptical of a lot of things that, or a lot of the conclusions and whatnot of Joel Skousen, but I've been listening to him for many years, and I think he's fairly sincere, and I assume that most of his sources are pretty well vetted because he's been doing this a long time and whatnot, as far as his analysis of world affairs and whatnot. And, he makes the rounds on alternative media. But anyway, he stated that one of the individuals, I guess suspects, that was initially taken into custody with the shooter, I think there were 3 or 4 people in the Christchurch mosque massacres, was, quote unquote, cleared and released. And that he has a source that told him that, and he didn't give it, unfortunately, but that the guy defected. It was a very weird choice of words, defected to Israel on his release. And I just said, well, if that's true, and I'm not saying it is, but Joel Skousen claims to have that information. If that's true, well, there you go right there. I hate to say it, but I mean, the first thing that went through my mind when I heard about it was, well, Israel's hand is in it somewhere for one reason or another. What you need to do, can I make a recommendation? You need to go over to Sibel Edmonds' website and her video news, because she's in Turkey right now and she's uncovering a lot of information about this accused shooter, and there's a pattern beginning to emerge that this guy is some kind of a professional operative, which would explain the calmness that we saw when he was pulling the trigger on those people in the mosques. So it does look like we're seeing a partial exposure of an intelligence op network, and that may be the reason that New Zealand all of a sudden has banned the video, banned the manifesto, is refusing to even mention the guy's name on TV anymore. They just want this to go away. And there's definitely much that is suspicious about the Christchurch shooting. Right. And, yes, Sibel Edmonds is, she's from Turkey, right? I don't know where she's from originally. The other thing was, I'm a big Trump supporter, voted for Trump, and I've always been very skeptical that there was this collusion with Russia to get him elected. However, I just can't quite join in the celebration, because I feel that there's a possibility that maybe they held this over Trump as a club, as leverage, and maybe they got everything they wanted out of him. But the thing is, whether that's the case or not, they're never going to let up on him. They're going to have a new club to hold over him, and they're never going to let up on him. And really, if there was no collusion, as the Mueller investigation concludes, then Trump obviously knew all along that there wasn't any. How come he didn't stand up for himself more? And if he doesn't stand up for himself at this point, what are we supposed to think? Because I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to make a prediction. He's not going to stand up for himself, which means he's not going to stand up for his base. He's not going to stand up for the people that voted. Let's back up here a little bit. I think, on the presumption that Trump knew there was no collusion, I think the reason that he played it cool and didn't stand up to defend himself is that, as many Democrats are now crying and screaming, he wanted the investigation to go all the way through to the end as an embarrassment to the Democratic Party, which has definitely worked. So I love it. I love the Democrats. I love the Democrats screaming and crying and ripping their hair out. I can join in on the enjoyment of that. I'm just saying, but what have they not got? He gives them everything they want. Well, we're going to see whether that's true or not in this upcoming fight over Obamacare, because the Democrats, now that they can't do the Russia thing anymore, they're now massing to push, reassert Obamacare. At the same time, the Department of Justice is saying it's probably unconstitutional anyway, and Trump is saying it's time to basically undo what's left of it. So that's going to be the next big political scrap fight. Israel's getting everything they want. No question about that, but I don't think it
I don't think it had anything to do with the Mueller report. Trump is just pro-Israel. That's all there is to it. I don't think he needs to be coerced. It's harming our nation's reputation. It's harming our security. It's inflaming the Middle East. It could start a regional war. But, Trump is just out there. Oh, yeah, Bibi, Netanyahu. They're friends. Netanyahu used to visit Trump's father's house on a regular basis. You might almost say they actually grew up together. So they're buds. And it doesn't have to have anything to do with the Mueller report. But the real issue is we've seen how Trump. The real issue is we've seen how Trump has behaved up until this point, with Russiagate hanging over his head. Russiagate is now gone, and the real thing is Trump's behavior going to change? Are we going to see a newly emergent, more assertive Trump, or is it going to go on back to what he was doing before? There are other clubs.
He certainly has a lot of political capital right now.
Yes, he does. There's no question about that.
So if he doesn't act now,
well, he's going to use some of that political capital to go after what's left of Obamacare. But we also know that his enemies are trying to hold clubs over his family members. They're going after Don Jr., they're going after Kushner, and maybe they did something wrong. But, that threat of prosecution, that's a big one. Politics is a dirty business. There's absolutely no way to get around that.
Okay. His supporters need to be saying, what about Hillary? What about Hillary Clinton? How come the FBI? How come there's no investigation of Hillary Clinton?
Well, we're going to keep on asking it here, that's for sure. And
this Jesse Smollett thing, I'm going to tell you, I was very frustrated and angry when I heard about it, but then I thought, you know what? This is just made to order for the white nationalist movement, because people are going to be able to point out to the normies and the civic nationalists, look, your white son, your white daughter are not going to have any rights in America.
Yeah.
5, 10, 15 years from now, the white people are not going to have any rights in the direction that this country is headed. There will be no civil rights, no rights for white people.
No, we're heading towards Zimbabwe and South Africa here. And whether Smollett was involved in a much larger operation to push that whole racism, anti-MAGA issue or not, I don't know. He is, after all, a professional actor. But somebody
and very
somewhere.
Close friends with Barack Obama, and very close friends with Barack Obama and other high, politicians, radicals in the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. Okay, Frank, well, we're going to let you go and get on back to reporting on the news that we have. And we are still talking about the fallout from the release of the Mueller report. So Kellyanne Conway's reaction, she was on Fox and Friends, and she's basically calling on Adam Schiff to resign. And she, too, is calling for a full investigation into just how all this got started and how much of it was a lie. How far do the lies and hoax extend? Now, we know that dossier was a complete fraud and a fabrication, bought and paid for by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. The money was laundered through Fusion GPS. There are a lot of people who are dirty with this now, and they should be investigated. So one thing that's come on out of this article over at Breitbart, we can never trust the corporate media, the FBI, or the intelligence community ever again. And looking back over the history of frauds and hoaxes and deceptions, we shouldn't have been anyway. But that's the lesson that we learn here. Never trust the corporate media, never trust the FBI, never trust any government agency ever again. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take another phone call. This one is from Dustin, New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I got a couple things to say, but Skull and Bones, all Skull and Bones is our gang's version of the He-Man Women Haters Club. It's a bunch of rich kids getting together and doing their thing, drinking, doing this, doing that. That's all that is.
Well,
people will make more
that's more the Freemasons here. You need to remember Skull and Bones is definitely tied on in with the CIA and the power structure. In fact, it's part of where the power structure recruits its next leaders.
That's true, but it's nothing more. I mean, we use the numbers and Kerry and running against Bush and this or that. But you know what? Kerry lost, and I would guess Yale would be more liberal than conservative, which Bush was, right?
Yes.
But they're both globalists, so you know. But Mike, on that Smollett thing, yeah, I mean, the previous caller's wrong. Like this hurts black people because, like, is Michelle Obama going to call up for the average black person in Chicago, like if he did that, or an Asian person, or a white person, or somebody pink polka dot, transgender, whatever? This is about money and power, man. This is about who how much money he had. That's what this was about, man. You know, nothing more. You know, I mean.
Well, I wouldn't say there was nothing more there. Because of the amount of juice that was brought to bear to get all these charges dropped, with the prosecutor still saying, you know, we're convinced he filed a fake police report. I mean, they had those other two gentlemen who apparently just confessed to being part of the hoax. It was an open and shut case, and yet they dropped it. Now, somebody with a lot of power and juice stepped on in there, whether, you know, whether somebody was bribed or threatened, we don't know. But that kind of political influence brought to bear on this case tells me this was more than just about Smollett's salary on the empire.
But Mike, also, he did a federal charge of the Postal Service. That Trump could, and also like the whole, you know, racism, but like, you know, anti-hate thing. Even though it's against himself, they could still charge him with it. Like if it was somebody else, they could charge him with a hate crime.
They're
even
not going to charge him.
On himself.
They're not going to charge him.
Well, that's Chicago. What about the federal government with the postal thing? Sending letters in the post.
Well, we'll see what's going to happen there. But again, somebody with a lot of power is protecting Smollett. And I don't think it's just because they think he's a great actor. Or they're a fan of Empire and they don't want to see him leave the show. But what was really notable in all the reporting about the dropping of the charges was how quickly it happened, because the case was moving forward. They were going through all the procedures, and then all of a sudden there was an announcement of a sudden development which was not clarified what that development was, and all the charges were dropped. So, you know,
right after the Mueller report, like it was like a payback, like, oh, Trump got off because, and then we'll let this guy go. It's like a tit for tat. Could it be? I don't know. You know, I'm not in that.
No, you're dealing with two different levels of politics here. But again, Smollett may have done this to push this whole, you know, there are entities in this country that are trying to push this narrative of racial tension. And the FBI was doing it back in the 1960s to try and split the anti-war movement in order to weaken it. And they came up with these things like the Black Panther coloring book and all this other nonsense to keep whites and blacks just, you know, angry with each other. And it's happening all over again. And Smollett's little fairy tale is part of that agenda. And that may be why somebody...
It just pisses me off.
What?
It just pisses me off how just this whole system is set up anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, Mike. Like, I'm ready to throw my shoes at my TV because it's just like nothing's getting better. It's either the same or worse.
It's getting worse. And again, I'm seeing in the future a Soviet Union-style collapse for this country. And everybody needs to get ready to get through some very hard times and to build a new nation that once again belongs to we the people. Going back to that Constitution, the first 13 amendments, no private central bank, strict limits on campaign donations so that politicians cannot be quite so easily and openly bought. Anyway, Dustin, we're going to let you go here. We're going to take another phone call before the next commercial break. Chance in West Virginia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike,
Hello, Mike. Folks, really, this man Smollett belongs to 3 protected classes. He's half black, he's half Jewish, and he's gay. Now,
Yes.
are people really surprised that he got away with this? I mean, really. And number 2, the New Zealand shooter spent 90 days in Israel, more
Yes.
days in Israel than he did the other countries. And that should tell you something right there, that he's most likely a Mossad operative. I'm surprised at folks.
Well, I don't know if he's
I mean, it
Mossad
doesn't take
operative,
a-
but he's somebody's.
I bet you he is. And don't hold your breath for Trump to file any charges against any of these people. I don't think that's going to happen neither.
Okay,
I
well,
really don't.
again, to back on up, I don't know that the Christchurch shooter is a Mossad operative, but it's becoming very obvious he's somebody's operative. That's what Sibel Edmonds is uncovering over there in Turkey, because this guy was just traveling.
I'll bet you my bottom dollar. I'll bet you my bottom dollar.
Can we have a rule here that you not cut me off? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I know you're betting your bottom dollar. He's Mossad. We're never going to know anyway. They're going to have a show trial for this guy down there. They're going to basically fake an execution and put him into some kind of witness protection program.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right, but that doesn't negate the fact that he's most likely a Mossad operative. I would bet my bottom dollar.
Well, I understand
And,
you're
as
willing to
far
bet
as-
your bottom dollar, but
Yeah.
what we don't have are facts to support that. We have a suspicion, okay, I will grant you, but he was going in and out of all kinds of different countries. Anyway,
Yeah, but
Chance,
he's stayed in
we're going to have
Israel
to
the
let you
longest.
go. We got to take another commercial break, and we'll be back with another phone call after these few words.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
How healthy are your arteries? Deteriorating circulation has a number of early warning signs. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, fingers and or toes often go cold, arms and or legs often go to sleep, sharp diagonal crease in the earlobe, short walks cause cramping or pains in legs, memory is not as good as it used to be, ankles swell late in the day, chest pain after physical exercise or emotional stress. If you experience even one of these symptoms, Your circulatory system is crying out for attention. Extendivite is a natural solution to help improve your overall health. Extendivite is not your average heart tonic. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And before we go back to the phones, a couple more developments in the Jussie Smollett case here. The first is that apparently the judge has now totally sealed the case. And that should raise a red flag that something crooked was going on. And Breitbart is now reporting that back in 2016, George Soros donated $408,000 to a super PAC that supported Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx, whose office prosecuted and then dropped the Jussie Smollett case. Now, that doesn't mean that George made a phone call, but it certainly put him in a position where he could have. All right, so let's see. Our next caller is Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. A number of things, but one of the things is with the Skull and Heights there, how it's tied into everything with Trump. I don't think he's being blackmailed on this. I think that's Kushner, and I'll tell you something else too. This guy Pompeo, I was watching something yesterday on YouTube. I don't know if you ever heard of the show No More News with Adam Green.
Yeah.
And he was going into this end of time business, the end of time. And this guy Pompeo, he is really into it. This guy is a nutcase, a religious nutcase. Not only he's a full-blooded Christian Zionist, and by that he's looking for the end of time. And what I understand, Green was saying there were CIA agents that were interviewed. They didn't give the names, of course. And I got no use for the CIA anyway. But even for them, this guy is considered crazy. They said they were really worried about him when he was with the CIA.
Okay, Mark, you keep fading out. I need you to hold that phone up closer to your face.
All right, hold on. Let me go in here. Any better now?
Yeah. Let's. Okay. So just sort of sum up what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that Pompeo is crazier than I thought. He's a full-fledged Christian Zionist, and Adam Green was saying that CIA people were interviewed, and they said they're really scared of the guy.
Yes.
I mean, the guy is really not. He's running our foreign policy. Either him and the other clown there,
Bolton. We're
in trouble. That's all I can say. We're in deep trouble, and if we don't do something, if the people don't, I don't know, rise up, but don't say something and do something about it, I don't know where we're going to lead, because this could lead directly to World War III. Because if you think God wants you to destroy the earth, so Jesus Christ can then take a throne there in Jerusalem, and the Jews and the Zionist Jews think some other kind of what do you call him again? A Messiah is going to take his throne in Jerusalem. Yes. The world is blown up. If we got these kind of nutcases running the United States and doing the bidding, basically, of the other jerk there, Netanyahu, I don't know where we're going to go, Mike.
It's really very dangerous when you have religious fanatics who have that much power, especially in a nation with nuclear weapons. Anyway, Mark, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for station identification, and we still have callers on the line. We'll be back with hour number 2 after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective, and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And we're going to take 2 more phone calls, and then we're going to close the lines for a while because I'm way, way behind on my talking points. So let's go to David in San Francisco. Aloha, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, thanks, Michael. You know, I noticed as I was studying Barr, Attorney General William Barr, the guy that just gave a pass to, covering up the Mueller report, I noticed that when Barr was the guy that gave Oliver North a pardon. He was the Attorney General under George Bush, the dad, and he gave Oliver North and Elliott Abrams and thinking it was Defense Secretary Weinberger.
Okay, David, pardon me for stepping in here, but you've got your character assassination gun pointed in the wrong direction, because all Barr did was summarize Robert Mueller's report and present it. And of course,
it's 700 pages down to four pages, right? And in fact, if Mitch McConnell doesn't want to do a vote about making it public, then obviously there is something to cover up. But what I wanted to ask you about was Ted Shackley, because Ted Shackley, wasn't he involved in the JFK assassination?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Ted Shackley was known as the Blonde Ghost. He was involved in the Cuban, the Cuba Project, as well as, I'm looking at Wikipedia here. He was the Operation Mongoose. He ran Phoenix program in Vietnam, and he was given a pardon through the help of Barr. So when Trump claims that he's trying to get rid of the deep state, when in fact Ted Shackley is probably one of the more evil people in the history of America. After World War II, I would say Roy Cohn and Ted Shackley are right up there. And so I'm just wondering what you know about Ted Shackley.
Well, I don't really know a lot about him, but I do know that from his own point of view and from obviously the CIA's point of view, he's not evil. He's a good operative, and it was probably CIA that basically prevailed on Barr to pardon him. We've seen a lot of people that we think should be in jail. They get pardons, and that's unfortunately just the way that Washington, D.C. works. But again, I know that William Barr has got a lot of things in his background that are very questionable. But again, he's just passing on what Robert Mueller gave to him. And William Barr is not going to misrepresent what Robert Mueller wrote, because if that full report does come on out, then William Barr is in trouble.
Well, that's exactly why Mitch McConnell is making sure that we, the people, don't ever get to see it. In other words, Mueller's...
It's not up to Mitch McConnell. It's up to William Barr. And Donald Trump is basically out there saying, release the full report.
Who said release? Barr didn't say that.
No, it's up to William Barr. It's William Barr's decision whether or not to release it. Now, there was this attempt in Congress, to have a vote to demand the release, but it would be symbolic only because it would violate, the separation of powers doctrine in our government. So I'm hoping Barr does release it. I think he should release it. I think all of the details that are in there, again, especially because there was this rather oblique reference to criminal charges being filed against some of the Clinton people. So I'd like to see it released.
Oh, absolutely, it should be, because, I've mentioned this before, that when the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, the ruble became zero. I mean, you couldn't buy a thing with the ruble, and all of the fat cats of the world, whether it's the Rockefellers, or the Rothschilds, or organized crime, moved in on Russia and bought up everything. They bought the farms, the fields, the ports, the roads, the bridges, the apartments, everything. And then that's how, when you look at the definition of kleptocracy, it's government by organized crime. And so Russia is not a government as we think of. It's more like organized crime running a whole bunch of operations.
Well, you could say that about Washington, D.C. You could easily say that about Washington, D.C.
I would say that right now, sure. But the point is we the people still think we own the country, whereas the average Russian doesn't think they own the country. And but the point is that when you get to a guy like Trump, he's been dealing with money laundering for these scoundrels ever since the 1991 collapse. So money laundering.
Well, wait a minute. Has he been charged with that? Has he been convicted of that?
Well, you look at these the people that he's been selling Trump Tower condos to. They're dozens and dozens, probably even into the hundreds of Russian oligarch and their buddies. In fact, there's a guy that's wanted by Interpol.
That falls far. Hang on, that falls far short of evidence that Trump was engaged with money laundering with the Russians. It's an accusation only, and the fact that Russians are renting condos from Trump's tower, that doesn't constitute
they're not
evidence.
Renting; they're buying. They're
All right,
buying.
fine, then they're buying.
There's a money laundering operation.
Okay, but
In other words,
David, listen to me, okay? The fact that Russians are buying condos in Trump Tower does not constitute proof that Trump is knowingly engaged in money laundering with the Russians. And by the way...
Felix Sater says different.
Well, that's his
You know
opinion.
who Felix Sater is, right?
I've
Felix
heard
Sater
the
is
name.
the guy that bumped it up. Yeah, Felix Sater is the guy that the average price of a condo in Trump Towers was going for like $90,000 or so. Felix Sater was the guy that got in touch with all these organized crime guys and figured out that if they just came up with a blanket $250,000 apiece, then these Trump condos would become like poker chips. And that nobody needed to live there. They were just collateral for organized crime to do money laundering. And that each condo, if it was declared $250,000, that they'd be, whether it was in Panama or Miami Beach or anywhere else, that these guys would be able to basically have poker chips that they could bounce around the world and use as collateral for $250,000. And that's why Trump claims that he's rich and powerful, but he's really rich and powerful only because people believe his crap.
Okay, David. Okay, we're going to drop you here. I get tired of people calling into the show to push a piece of propaganda here. And the reason I say it's propaganda is even stipulating that all these Russians were buying these overpriced condos in Trump Tower, it's a leap without substantiation that Trump knew that that's what these condos were being used for. And I think now that Russiagate has collapsed, we're going to start seeing all kinds of other accusations against Trump start to come on out. They're going to be calling into all of the independent media, radio shows. They're going to be trying to post to all the websites. We're going to have to be very, very careful. They're just going to dogpile on Donald Trump. Trump did this. Trump did that. Trump passes wind in elevators. He dances barefoot on shag carpeting. He's evil. All right, so we're going to take one more phone call, then we're going to close the lines. Paul in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Concerning Jussie Smollett,
Yes.
For one, the Attorney General of, I guess that's the state of Illinois, Kim Foxx, she's a Democrat. She won overwhelmingly in
Yes.
the election, 72%. So that really tells you a sample of the political like agenda and views of typical Chicagoans that they would cover up for this crime, and not apply the law here, which so.
Well, I
aptly
don't think the individual
applied.
citizens of Illinois had anything to say about it. And again, the reason that Kim Foxx may have won so overwhelmingly was a very generous donation by George Soros, which we just reported on a little while ago.
Well, it's a democratic state, especially for the city of Chicago. But I think one of the things we as white people can do, right, in this case, is, they're sending a message by doing this. I mean, here he's a black criminal, commits a crime, and I think he would have probably testified to see innocent white people sent to decades of prison if they had arrested some happenstance white people in the vicinity. He would have probably testified and said, yeah, that's the guy who did it, and probably saw some innocent white people sentenced for decades. He probably would have.
Well, see, here's the point. When he was going to trial, it was for filing the false police reports and various other things. And they had an open and shut case because they had his two friends who helped him stage the incident, and they were ready to cooperate. Now, somebody else emailed in and said that maybe the reason the Smollett case was dropped was that he was going to name some very big, powerful names who were behind this, that he might have been ready to say, yes, I was put up to this by these other people who wanted a racial incident. And that may be part of what happened there. The fact that the judge has sealed the entire case, though, I think is very suspicious.
Right. Now, remember this, though. He could be brought up on federal charges by
Yes.
William Barr for the mailing and sending terroristic threats in the mail. So that could be a federal charge. But we won't expect that from Mr. Barr either. I don't expect this. But I think the subtext to this, and this is a classic thing that all white Americans know, are really in black districts and in black areas that are run by majority black areas. You're not going to be safe, and you're not going to be get good justice if you are attacked in those areas. So remember that, white people out there, segregate yourself. Boycott Chicago. Don't go there. Yeah, you heard what I said.
Yeah,
Don't
I
go
heard what
there.
you said.
Boycott
All right.
and
Thank you
avoid-
very
avoid-
much. All right. We are closing the lines, people, because I got too many agenda-driven phone calls for one day, and I am way behind on my talking points. All right, we're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network, and we're going to get back to the actual news here. And I got to tell I'm suspicious about all these calls who come on in and say, white people need to self-segregate. We're white supremacists. Yet, no, we're not a white supremacist show. For one thing, I don't consider myself white. I'm your basic poi dog, mixed breed. And I don't support white supremacism. I think they should rebrand themselves. I think Americans should be proud of being Americans, is what I think should be going on. Okay, so moving on here. Stacey Abrams, who reportedly is being considered for vice presidential running mate to Biden, Joe Biden, is out there making a lot of noise right there. And she's saying she's deeply suspicious of Robert Mueller's final report. and that the American people should be deeply suspicious that it cleared the president of any collusion with Russian officials. And she said, I tend to think it's like having your brother summarize your report card to your parents. And apparently she's still out there insisting that she won the Georgia gubernatorial race. Meanwhile, Adam Schiff is, again, they can't let go. And he's out there saying, we need another investigation. We need more investigations. We need to keep going on this. Okay. Here's one that's really out there in left field. John Schindler is out there tweeting that the reason Robert Mueller didn't put any indictments for Donald Trump in his report is because Trump's crimes were just too secret. They had to be classified. What he had done was just so horrible that it had to be covered up. I mean, that's how desperate they are to try and spin this. And here's another one from Carrie Lutz. Did Mueller make a deal? And we're going to have weeks of this. In fact, they're going to run this all the way to 2020. We don't believe the Robert Mueller report. I mean, how quickly Robert Mueller has gone from being the knight in shining armor for the Democrats to just being this evil villain who failed to deliver. Representative Rashida Tlaib, I don't know how to pronounce that, Tlaib, is still pushing for a Trump impeachment. She doesn't have anything. Certainly the Mueller investigation, nothing in there comes up to the level of impeachment. And she's already out there pushing for lawmakers to create a new commission that would inquire whether President Trump committed impeachable offenses. Well, he certainly didn't in the Mueller report, and they're trying to shift the goalposts to say it was obstruction of justice. But again, Mueller wasn't obstructed. Neither were any of his people. Now, a lot of people were wondering where Hillary Clinton was in all this, because all roads lead back to Hillary Clinton, who reportedly came up with this whole Russia collusion story just days after her loss in 2016, because she couldn't admit defeat. She couldn't explain how she lost such a heavily rigged election. So it had to be the Russians, Well, she finally surfaced again today talking about climate change. So she's out there saying, you know, we've got to do something about the climate. She's not talking about the Mueller report, but she still wants her face in the media, or her face on social media. Latest word is that if no clear front runner emerges from the Democratic field by the fall, that Hillary is planning to step on in. And that's bad news as well. Now, interestingly, despite all the nattering and gromishing and wailing that's going on in Congress over the Mueller report, especially among the Democrats that are actually running for president in 2020 are remaining silent. They're trying to, all of them, avoid the controversy. They're also avoiding AIPAC because they're realizing that's become controversial, and that could be an election loser as well. So they're out there just maintaining their distance. Now, John Brennan has done a 180-degree on the Russian collusion. I mean, he was out there originally. He was convinced it was definitely there. And now he's trying to sort of polish up his public image by saying, well, I may have been wrong. And, I mean, for the last couple of months, Brennan was dropping hints that he was convinced Robert Mueller's investigation would end with the impeachment of Trump. He suggested as much during a recent appearance on MSNBC, in which host Lawrence O'Donnell desperately tried to convince his audience that Brennan knew something they didn't, because the audience was out there booing and saying. So basically, he was on MSNBC's Morning Joe program yesterday saying, I don't know if I received bad information, but I think I suspected there was more than there actually was. John, okay. Mr. Brennan, you were flat out wrong. That's it. You were wrong. Former head of the CIA, and you were wrong. And we're supposed to trust the security of our nation to people like you? I don't think so. Meanwhile, Papadopoulos has come on out responding to Brennan in his turnabout saying, all the assets you weaponized against me are being outed. Congress has the names. Payback is going to be a bitch, or at least I hope it will be. And this isn't about Trump versus the rest of the world, because personally I'm very disappointed in Donald Trump. It's about respect for the system, getting our republic back on track and getting the processes back in line with where they're supposed to be under the Constitution and the letter of the law. We'll be right back after these few words.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Ann, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. pay.
And aloha, America.
Unemployment
Welcome
hit
back
you
to our
as
show
well.
here. We're halfway through the show and we're still dealing with the release of the Mueller report. I am so far behind on my talking points. Most of this is probably going to wind up having to be held over until tomorrow's show. And now we turn to the media, and they are desperate to try and recover from this. As desperate, if not more so, than the various politicians. I mean, the politicians, they can either keep on screaming, there was collusion, or they can just shut up and hope it'll fade from the voters' memories. But for the corporate media, this is a devastating blow to what remained of their credibility and their legitimacy, and they're desperate to try and reverse that situation. And interestingly enough, there was this article that came on out from Mint Press News, and it's basically declaring there will be no repercussions for the media's Russiagate conspiracy theorists. And there probably won't be in terms of any litigations, because as we've mentioned many times in connection with the Monsanto synthetic bovine growth hormone lawsuit, there is no law that obligates the corporate media to tell you the truth about anything. They are legally allowed to lie to you. Management can order the correspondents and the prostitutes to lie to you, and if those journalists refuse, they can be fired for cause. That was the outcome of that lawsuit. But in terms of repercussions, there are other kinds of repercussions. And everyone who pushed the Russiagate conspiracy theories, they've destroyed their credibility and their reputations, and it won't come back anytime soon. There's an old saying that trust arrives on foot but departs on horseback. And it's absolutely true, because once you break, you can work for decades, 100 years, to gain the trust of a population or an audience or a readership or a viewership. One exposed horrific lie wrecks it all, and that's what's going on now. Laura Ingraham is out there saying it's time for a reckoning of the mainstream media, and they're all just so traumatized, those poor people. Here's where it gets interesting. I've said before, you need to be careful about people who are getting these awards, like the Nobel Peace Prize or the Pulitzer Prize or all the rest of it. But apparently, the New York Times and this GQ writer published this poorly researched and purposefully misleading article about Devin Nunes. And for it, they won a writing award. The Syracuse University awarded Jason Zengler the 2019 Toner Prize for Excellence in Political Reporting. And so that's what happens. People are given these awards to trick you into thinking this is who you should pay attention to. And you shouldn't pay attention to those other people over on independent media. They don't have awards. They don't have, these gold-plated plaques on the wall or anything like that. So they're nothing. We've got the prize. And by the way, this is a huge embarrassment for the Pulitzer organization, who over the last 2 years handed out a whole bunch of Pulitzer Prizes on those Russiagate stories. So they're trying to deal with that right now. Brit Hume, who's the senior political analyst for Fox News, is saying this collusion story, it's the worst journalistic debacle of his lifetime. And he's basically slamming corporate media for their apparent inability to learn anything from past mistakes, like Saddam's nuclear weapons. Now, over at CNN, they're trying to take the moral high ground. We did the job that we were supposed to do here. And CNN anchor Chris Cuomo is basically slamming the supporters of President Donald Trump for taking a victory lap about the Mueller report, and says they're taking a victory lap for not being felons, and he says that's a low standard of behavior. Well, look who's talking. CNN set a low standard of behavior for not vetting any of these Russia collusion stories it fed to the American people. And the victory lap is not about not being felons. It's a victory lap that the truth actually finally got out there. Now, over Again, CNN, Jeff Zucker is saying, we have no regrets. We have no regrets at all. Jeff Zucker is basically saying, we're not investigators. We're reporters, and we just reported what we were being told. And so we're an innocent party here. And Zucker is saying he's entirely comfortable with CNN's Trump-Russia coverage, and said it was entirely appropriate to give near round-the-clock coverage due to the story's magnitude. Except, of course, there was no story. And he says, we're not investigators, we're journalists. Well, that's odd, because I took a journalism class in college where we were told that we were investigators and that we had to verify our stories before we went to press. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, keep it today.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5:15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're still talking about this story where CNN's Jeff Zucker is out there saying CNN is blameless. We're not investigators, we're journalists. Our role is to report the facts as we know them, which is exactly what we did. A couple of problems with that. There were no facts. The Mueller report makes that clear. There were no facts. There were allegations. There was a lot of rumor and innuendo, but that's not the same thing as news. And as I mentioned before, the commercial break, when I took a journalism class in college, we were told we had to confirm a story before we ran with it. That we didn't just parrot what somebody in the government told me. So, okay, maybe CNN under Zucker aren't investigators, but it doesn't change the fact they were flat out wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. Okay. Apparently, when Rachel Maddow heard that the Mueller report didn't find anything, she apparently literally burst into tears, because for the last 2 years, Rachel Maddow's MSNBC program was this one-stop shopping center for every insane news story involving Donald Trump and Russia. She was out there pushing it as hard as she could. And now, of course, her credibility just imploded. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has sent a list of Russian collusion liars to various TV producers, people like Senator Richard Blumenthal, Adam Schiff, Representative Gerald Nadler, Representative Eric Swalwell, all these people who were on TV. And somebody put together a montage video of them saying, there's plenty of evidence of collusion. Oh, there's evidence all over. Oh, there's evidence of collusion. And, of course, there wasn't. And the White House has respectfully suggested to these TV producers that these now proven liars not be given any more airtime, not be put on the air as knowledgeable experts of anything. So another article, this one out of the New York Post, Mueller Madness, the media pundits who got it most wrong. And there's already kind of like this scoring system. And if you go to this article online, and it's linked to whatreallyhappened.com, they've actually got this graphic where they make it look like it's a board game of all the people who were involved in pushing this Trump-Russia collusion. And over on the cable network side, right at the top, Rachel Maddow, followed by Ana Navarro, John Oliver, Donnie Deutsch, Morning Joe, John Brennan, Don Lemon, Jimmy Kimmel, Alec Baldwin, Brian Ross, and it just goes on and on. Michael Avenatti, who, of course, is dealing with his other issues right now. Alyssa Milano was out there, Kathy Griffith, Robert De Niro. All of these people just blew up their own credibility. They're not going to admit it. They're going to go on saying, well, you know, it was they're either going to say Mueller sold out, or Mueller made a deal, or there was collusion, he just couldn't find it, or it's all a Russian plot. These are not people who will admit that they were made fools of. Because I think the vast majority of them probably really believed the Russia collusion narrative. And it was handed on down to them, going all the way back to the Hillary Clinton campaign, and she started to put it on out there, and it trickled on down, and a lot of people really probably believed it, and they bet their reputations and their programs on that. Okay, so another article here, and this says it all. This is over at Charles Hughes Smith Blogspot. Falling for a con is painful, and the first reaction is to deny being conned. The second reaction is to blame skeptics for having been right all along. And we're seeing all that happen. We're seeing all that happen. The people who were fooled by this hoax, they don't want to admit it. They like to think of themselves as smart and clever and bright people, who are, they're very alert and discerning, and they would not be fooled. But the Trump-Russia hoax basically fed into what they wanted to believe. They were so infected with Trump derangement syndrome, they just grabbed onto this story and said, oh, it must be true. I so want it to be true. And it probably would have worked had there not been the independent media, which is in the business of democratizing the public narratives. Prior to the rise of the internet and the independent media, the narrative was under the control of the government and the corporate media. They would say it, it would broadcast out, the American people would, for the most part, believe it, and those who didn't couldn't get their version out. It was total control. The internet and the independent media have broken that. We are a democratizing process. We're democratizing the public narratives. And the elites don't like that because we've taken away from them one of their most powerful tools of statecraft, which is the ability to lie with impunity. Because when you can lie with impunity, you can get the citizenry to agree on the narrative and the context, and that leads to political legitimacy and the obedience of the people who believe Saddam had nuclear weapons and therefore we're going to send our children off to be killed and crippled in Iraq, or various other variations on that theme. All right, now let's talk about Hollywood and all those movie stars who said they were going to move to Canada when Trump won the White House. They're still here. And they're still out there trying to scream that, Trump is guilty of treason. And you need to basically look at all this hate that was being spewed on out from supposedly liberal, accepting people. But apparently they're only accepting and inclusive amongst themselves. If you're a conservative, forget about it. We're talking people like Bette Midler, Rosie O'Donnell, Michael Moore, John Cusack, Barbara Streisand. I feel bad about that one. I worked with her once. I thought she was a very nice person. Jeffrey Wright, Chris Evans, Bill Maher, Rob Reiner, Jim Carrey, Mark Ruffalo, Adam Scott. The list just goes on and on and on and on. So, okay, I want to take a moment here to insert an urgent story for the people living in South Dakota. Apparently, there is a problem with the Quinn Dam. It has been breached. There is a concern that it could actually collapse, and there is a flash flood warning for 3 counties in South Dakota. Southwestern Hakon County, that's Haakon County, northwestern Jackson County, and east central Pennington County. And they're saying some locations will experience flooding, including Quinn and Cottonwood, and locations along Cottonwood Creek. So they're very concerned the dam could actually collapse. So if you're in South Dakota, please take the appropriate precautions here. Okay, now, getting into our hoisting with one's own petard, Vitaly Milanov, he's a member of the Russian State Parliament's International Affairs Committee, has proposed that Russia create a special panel to investigate possible U.S. meddling in the Russian elections. Talk about turnabout is fair play. And he says, basically, given the political situation, it would be a logical step to set up a parliamentary commission in the State Duma to investigate the influence of U.S. intelligence services and official state bodies on the electoral processes in Russia. Parliamentarians may find evidence of manipulation with the people's votes during the 1990s and publish the facts of attempts to interfere in the Russian elections. So some chickens are about ready to come home to roost there. Now, everybody is out there saying, oh, well, you know, the FBI and the CIA, they've gone rogue. They've absolutely gone rogue. And they're saying it like it's a new thing, and it isn't, because the FBI and the CIA have been out of control long before this Russiagate situation ever showed up. There was that time the CIA considered bombing Miami and blaming it on Castro. There was the time the CIA was caught red-handed spying on the Senate Intelligence Committee. This was back in 2014 when they were getting ready to release the report on the CIA's torture program, and the CIA was caught spying on them. Then you had the infamous FBI suicide letter to Martin Luther King and his wife. And nasty stuff. You had the CIA forced prisoners to participate in some of the MK Ultra mind control experiments. And it was this huge program. The reason it was called MK Ultra, the original MK came from a Nazi program that was attempting to do the same thing. And during Operation Paperclip, the CIA basically copied it all over, added the Ultra to it to make it look like they were going to do better than the Nazis did. And they started running these experiments here. And one of the weirdest things that ever came out of this was called Operation Midnight Climax, which involved the CIA literally operating a bondage parlor in San Francisco, overlooking the bay. And they had these hookers on staff who would lure unsuspecting Johns back for what the Johns thought was going to be a good time, and they would get drugged, and usually with LSD, trying to find the correct combination of sex and drugs that would get people to spill their deepest, darkest secrets. They ran for 9 years without any success whatsoever until finally CIA leadership shut it all down because it was becoming an embarrassment. Now, for the people who ran that operation, that's got to be an interesting thing on your resume. You know, for these 9 years, I ran a CIA whorehouse. Remember Dr. Frederick Whitehurst? He was a supervisory special agent at the FBI's crime lab, and he blew the whistle that the FBI crime lab engaged in systematic forensic fraud to benefit prosecutions. And he blew the whistle in 1994. Nothing was done. He took his case to the Department of Justice, and the FBI really didn't like that. And Whitehurst was eventually chased out of the FBI. Then we have, of course, all the times the FBI has routinely staged acts of terrorism. And they've been caught on numerous occasions targeting unstable, mentally ill individuals, sending informants to bait them into committing terror attacks. And before these individuals can actually carry out the attack, the Bureau intervenes, presenting the foiled plot to the public as a successfully thwarted attack. And in 2011, journalist Glenn Greenwald summarized several examples of this deceitful tactic. Apparently, the FBI subjected 19-year-old Somali-American Mohammed Osman Mohammed to months of encouragement, support, and money, and convinced him to detonate a bomb at a crowded Christmas event in Portland, Oregon, only to arrest him at the last moment and then issue a press release boasting of its success. In late 2009, the the FBI persuaded and enabled Hossam Maher Hussein Smadi, a 19-year-old Jordanian citizen, to place a fake bomb at a Dallas skyscraper, and separately convinced Farouk Ahmed, a 34-year-old naturalized American citizen born in Pakistan, to bomb the Washington Metro. False flags. It's a big part. And then, of course, you have Operation Mockingbird, which, again, began in the post-World War II environment. They admired how the Nazis had controlled the German media. They wanted to emulate it. And Operation Mockingbird began back then. It exists to this very day. And its goal is CIA control over all the corporate media. All of the top management in all of the corporate media, newspapers, TV, radio, whatever, are CIA assets. So, after all of that, where do we go from here? Well, we're going to keep on publicly naming and shaming everybody who pushed that Russia collusion story. We can't let the American people forget that. We've got to remember those names and hold them up to public humiliation, especially as we get closer to the 2020 elections. But over at the Electronic Intifada, they have a different idea. They're saying, okay, we had 2 years of media hyperventilation that Russia had interfered in the U.S. internal political system, and it was a bust. But there is plenty of evidence of foreign interference and collusion in U.S. politics, but it's not from Russia, it's from Israel. And they're absolutely right about that. Corporate media won't touch that, of course. Boy, do you remember the brouhaha when Representative Ilhan Omar stood up and said, we need to talk about all the people in this chamber who are getting money from Israel supporters, and ask how is it influencing their vote. And oh my goodness, it's anti-Semitism. It's an old anti-Semitic canard. How dare you say that? And from the reaction, you could tell that Omar hit it right on the head. All right, turning to other international news here. There had been a reported ceasefire between Gaza and Israel. That apparently turned out to either be inaccurate or just ignored because the IDF and Gaza are continuing to fire rockets at each other. So the bloodshed is continuing. And even worse, it looks like Israel is bracing for a massive ground operation in Gaza. We're going to talk about that more after these few words.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking about the situation between Israel and Gaza. And Israeli media is reporting that Israel is transferring 2 brigades, infantry and armored corps, from training and headquarters areas to the Southern Command area. There's a focused mobilization of reservists to specific zones, and said that the current round of reservists are from intelligence and air defense units. So it looks like Israel is really going to uncork on the Gazans here. There's another similar article, this one from memc.org. Apparently there's a limited call-up of reservists, and Brigadier General Ronen Menelis alleges that a rocket was fired from Hamas operatives from a military post in Rafah that had a range of 120 kilometers. And I mean, these Hamas rockets are little more than hollow tubes stuffed with dynamite, and they have no guidance systems. I think this was all kicked off with a false flag. And I think it's all part of Netanyahu's bid for re-election, because unfortunately in Israel, killing Palestinians is good politics. Apparently, there's questions about whether Israel is really interested in a truce with the Palestinians in Gaza. And it has to do with this organization called MEMO, Middle East, I'm not sure what the rest of it is here, but basically saying that the talks that they've had are going nowhere. And he said there's kind of an Israeli procrastination. And no, Israel does not want a truce with the Palestinians in Gaza. They want Gaza. And way back when Ariel Sharon had said, we're going to leave the Gaza Strip to the Palestinians, and there was an implied deal. We'll let the Palestinians have the Gaza Strip, and the world ignores the illegal settlements we're going to build on the West Bank. And I predicted all those years ago that as soon as those settlements were facts on the ground, that Israel would move to retake Gaza. It may be about to happen now. Still hearing a lot of repercussions from Trump's recognition of the Golan Heights. And a lot of people are out there saying this is going to lead to the further isolation of the United States, because the rest of the world is condemning the move. They're saying it's illegitimate, it violates international law, it violates United Nations sanctions, it's coming across as extraordinarily arrogant of Trump to do. Now, Saudi Arabia is out there saying that recognition of the Golan Heights, they're denouncing it. Okay, we got to take a break here for station identification. Back with hour number 3 after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3, and the phone lines are still closed because I'm way, way behind on my talking points. So we're talking about Donald Trump's recognition that the Golan Heights is now part of Israel, which under international law, he doesn't have that authority to do. And of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is proudly showing off that proclamation as part of his political campaign. And it's just drawing condemnation from around the world. The Gulf states have all rejected this decision. Pretty much every other nation on earth has rejected Israel's claim to the Golan. Now, basically, Israel stole the land during the 6 Days War, which, again, Netanyahu was saying was a defensive war. How is a defensive war grabbing more territory than you had before? That just doesn't make any sense. But from Israel's point of view, all the wars are defensive wars, even when they're invading and conquering other people's territory. In 1981, Israel annexed the territory, and the rest of the world said, no, we don't recognize it. We absolutely do not. The real concern here is that this is going to lead to Netanyahu demanding that the United States recognize that the West Bank is now part of Israel. Just grab a little more land, grab a little more land. That's Israel's idea of Middle East peace. I want that piece over there, and that piece over there, and that piece over there. Another story coming on out from Russia Today. The U.S. backing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights proves sovereignty is not something the United States respects. And why would you be surprised? Look at all the nations whose sovereignty is being violated with all these U.S. wars and regime changes going on. That's not respect for a nation's sovereignty. Meanwhile, the AIPAC conference is continuing in Washington, D.C., and all the politicians are lining up to get up on that stage and just vow their support for Israel. And that includes Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, more than a dozen U.S. lawmakers. They appeared on stage during this. This is the second day of the conference here, and just say, America stands with Israel. Well, our bought and paid for politicians certainly stand with Israel, but polls are showing more and more that the American people are having doubts and second thoughts, or there wouldn't be any support for the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which is growing, which is why Israel is trying to arm twist these ridiculous laws criminalizing support for the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. In fact, even trying to criminalize criticism of Israel, to declare, it's all anti-Semitism. The only reason people criticize Israel is they hate the Jewish people, which makes about as much sense as saying that the only reason people criticize the Nazis is they hate Germans. It's nonsensical, but Israel has gotten away with this for decades, courtesy of the American corporate media. Now, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio got up on that stage at AIPAC, and his speech basically was a testimonial to the Democratic Party's inherent racism against Palestinians. This supposed progressive mayor never mentioned Palestinian conditions under occupation. He never mentioned their second-class rights in Israel, while touching again and again on the Jewish history of persecution and exclusion and expulsion. Well, whose fault was that? Because if you go back and you look at the long history of Jewish persecution and expulsions, there's only one common factor, and that is the Jewish people themselves and how they interacted with the larger community around them. Meanwhile, various protesters are outside the White House protesting against AIPAC, and there are the various pro-Palestinian groups, including Al-Awda, Students for Justice in Palestine, Answer Coalition, Code Pink was in there, Nacharai Karda, and they protested and they gave speeches about what they call AIPAC's overreach in Washington. And it's certainly true. If you go back and you look at what AIPAC did to Cynthia McKinney, I mean, they literally bought her way out of Congress. When she criticized what was going on in Palestine, when she pointed out some of the war crimes being committed in Iraq, AIPAC just poured tons of money into her challenger for her next election, and she was instantly out. That's how much power AIPAC has. And no foreign government representative should have that kind of power over our Congress. This is a big stink issue, and I'm not surprised that the 2020 Democrat candidates are staying away, because this could really start to blow up just in the next 18 months and turn friend of Israel into being an election loser. Getting on down to Venezuela, apparently more than $30 billion have been illegally diverted from Venezuela in the last 2 months. And it's Venezuela saying the U.S. orchestrated the operation. Around $1 billion of the stolen funds from national assets in international banks were transferred to the personal accounts of the opposition leaders. And the money is meant to finance terrorist cells against the country. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Now, John Bolton is out there responding to these Russian planes that recently landed there, saying the U.S. will not tolerate hostile foreign meddling in the Western Hemisphere. Harumph, harumph, because meddling in other countries is our job. You're not supposed to do that. Only we can go around the world messing around with other countries like Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan and so forth and so on. Now, Russia has responded by saying that their specialists are there based on a 2001 military technical cooperation deal with Caracas, and it doesn't need any further approval from anybody, because there was a call for Juan Guaido to get the National Assembly to say, no, this can't be allowed. But Maduro's government is saying it's a done deal. This has been in place since 2001. The existing deal was ratified by both Russia and Venezuela, and it does not require any additional approval from the National Assembly. So I know what's going to happen. Russia is going to take the Syria approach with Venezuela, and I feel sorry for those Venezuelan people who have already suffered horrifically in this battle over their oil and what currency it's going to be sold for. But they're going to let the United States come on in, and they're just going to wear them down in a war of attrition. And you know, years ago, when the U.S. was just starting to go on out and say, we're going to go into this country, we're going to go into that country, and Russia said, we will counter it by turning the U.S. invasions into wars of attrition, and we will wear them down until they collapse. That's what worked in Vietnam. That's what worked in Syria. That's what's working in Afghanistan, and it will work in Venezuela. And it will bring us closer to direct war between the United States and Russia, which in all probability could wind up being a nuclear exchange. Over in Ukraine, they're coming up on their presidential race the end of the month, the first round, rather, of the elections. There's a record number of candidates, 39. This is their equivalent of the primaries, and most of them really have no chance of victory. According to polls, there are three main candidates. There's the comedian Vladimir Zelensky, the ruling oligarch Petro Poroshenko, and the contesting oligarch Yulia Tymoshenko, who probably would have won the last presidential election. She was certainly well ahead in the polls, but it appears there had been some election fraud there as well. Now, this gets really interesting. A former officer of the Ukrainian Security Service, SBU, Vasily Prozorov, told a news conference yesterday that Ukraine shot down Malaysian Airlines Flight 17. And he says he's got inside information, and he said it was Ukraine that did it, to try and blame on the Donbass. He also said that Ukraine is planning an ethnic cleansing of the Donbass when they go in there. Down in Africa, there's been an attack by armed men in a village in central Mali, killing more than 100 people. It's one of the deadliest attacks in this country. And Mulaya Gwindo, the mayor of the town of Bankas, said men dressed as traditional Donzo hunters encircled and attacked the nearby Fulani village of, I can't pronounce this, and said it's a very heavy death toll. The village is completely devastated. And he says bodies are still being recovered. Now, I'm not sure what's going on in there. Don't forget, shortly after Germany asked for the repatriation of their gold from the United States and France, France invaded Mali, which is the third largest gold-producing nation in Africa. So are they going to start sort of clearing out people from areas where they want to have a gold mine? Over in Algeria, the head of the army, Ahmed Gaid Salah, earlier today called on Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika to be declared unfit to rule during a televised address on state media outlets. And Salah said we must find a way out of this crisis immediately within the constitutional framework. And he basically came on out and said this amid continued protest against Bouteflika. And he's basically calling on the aging president, who has been rarely seen in public since he suffered a stroke in 2013, to resign from his position. A lot of people think that the stroke left him incapable of performing his duties, and Algeria is being run by the bureaucracy around him. So, anyway. Over in Japan, an unknown man set off an explosion at the American Camp Foster Base in Okinawa. And the unknown man cut the protective fence and entered the territory Sunday evening. Once he was inside the military base, he blew up a gas cylinder on the second floor at the door of the office of the Okinawa office of the Ministry of Defense of Japan. And it's unclear what he was trying to do there. They're not saying that it was terrorism. May have been resistance here. And meanwhile, even as Washington and Beijing are trying to reach a trade deal, Donald Trump wants to boost the U.S. presence in the Taiwan Strait. Now, last Sunday, 2 American ships sailed through that strait, which is a poke in Beijing's eye. And I can't understand what Trump is thinking here. So the 7th Fleet is saying it's just a freedom of navigation exercise in accordance with international law. Now, this reminds me a lot of this report that was generated by, I'm struggling to remember his name, Office of Naval Intelligence Lieutenant Commander Arthur H. McCollum. And McCollum had experience with the Japanese way of life and sensibilities. And so he wrote up this report of 8 steps that the United States could take that would provoke Japan to war. And looked at from the American point of view, these were all relatively minor things that shouldn't cause an upset. Seen from the Japanese sensibilities, they were all horrific insults. And one of those was continuing to sail along their coastline with warships. So we're seeing, again, it's a provocation. Now, last Thursday, Representatives Ted Lieu and Elise Stefanik introduced the U.S.-Israel Directed Energy Cooperation Act, which would authorize the Department of Defense to carry out bilateral cooperation with Israel to develop directed energy capabilities. In other words, U.S. taxpayers are going to subsidize an experimental Israeli laser weapon, just like we subsidize the Iron Dome system, only to have Israel turn around and sell it back to us. The Trump administration is also pushing for the creation of an $8 billion loan fund to boost weapons sales to foreign allies. You want to buy our weapons? Well, here, easy terms, just give us a down payment and drive that baby right on out of here. It's all about the money. It is all about the money. Now, this is apparently a replacement for the Foreign Military Financing Grant Program, in which they just gave the money away. So these are supposedly going to be loans. But of course, forgiving the loans becomes a very powerful lever against those countries who buy those weapons. Okay, we already talked about Jussie Smollett. And little mention, though, the Chicago Police Department is very upset over the fact that the charges got dropped. Getting on back to Hillary Clinton, Judicial Watch has received 756 pages of newly uncovered emails. We talked about this yesterday. Several of them were classified. They were transmitted over her unsecure non-StateGov email system. And there are 5 new classified emails and communications with controversial figures Lanny Davis and Sidney Blumenthal. So here is the question. When is Attorney General Barr going to order a new investigation? Because James Comey's dropping of charges against Hillary was not an exoneration. She's never had her day in court. Double jeopardy does not apply. She can still be prosecuted. And Donald Trump, if you or one of your people are listening to this, it's only going to take one felony conviction to knock Hillary out of the 2020 race. And you can go ahead and commute her sentence afterwards. Little bit of history, getting on back to that whole situation. From 2001 to 2005, there was an ongoing investigation into the Clinton Foundation. There was actually a grand jury. Governments from around the world had donated to the Clinton Foundation, yet from 2001 to 2003, none of those donations to the Clinton Foundation were declared. So guess who took over this investigation in 2002? It was James Comey, and the investigation stuttered and died. Now, we mentioned this briefly in the early part of the show. Justice Department lawyers are now saying the entire Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional and should be struck down. And basically, the lawyers told a federal appeals court Monday it thinks the whole of Obamacare is unconstitutional, which sides with a Texas district court ruling that found Obamacare totally unconstitutional. And of course, the Democrats are going to fight tooth and nail for two reasons. Obamacare is President Obama's signature accomplishment in office, even though it just ruined health care for Americans. And the other reason, of course, is with the release of the Mueller report, the Democrats are humiliated. And from now on, whatever Trump is in favor of, the Democrats are going to be opposed to. They won't even consider the merits of the legislation or the issues at hand. It's just going to be, if Trump wants it, I'm voting against it, which is a lousy way to run a government. So apparently Trump is planning on shutting Obamacare down and using it as part of his 2020 election campaign. So we'll see how that works out. Meanwhile, Alexandria occasionally has a Cortex is out there saying that her negative poll numbers are due to racism. So her poll numbers are really, really down. And in her district, which is heavily Democratic, she's actually less popular than Donald Trump. But she said it has nothing to do with the outrageous things that she's saying, has nothing to do with the unworkability of the Green New Deal. It's racism. You know, if you don't support me and vote for me, then you're just another gosh darn racist. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this.
We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines again, and we're going to start with Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael. What's on my mind is, and there's only really one subject today. I've never in my lifetime, and I don't think you in your lifetime, you've ever heard of a case with this Juicy Pussy Smollett getting off like this off these charges, Michael. Tell me what's going on, because I have no idea. And is he going to get off with the letter that he sent to himself with the federal government too on that? He's going to get off on that charge too? What is going on here?
Well, like I said earlier in the program, it's obvious that somebody with a lot of juice got to that prosecutor and convinced her to drop all these charges. And they had an open and shut case. They had a slam dunk. They had the two guys who helped him perpetrate the hoax, and they were cooperating. And there are all kinds of theories out there. We know that George Soros donated something like $400,000 to a PAC that helped her get elected. There's a suggestion that the producers of Empire threatened to relocate the show to some other city, which would have been a major loss of revenue. We know that the Smolletts were friends with the Obamas. Michelle Obama personally intervened on this case. The judge is an Obama appointee who has sealed this entire case, which tells us right there, something went down they don't want the public to know about.
Well, Michael, let me ask a question. Before I go to one answer, what about the federal charge on the letter that he sent? What's going to happen with that?
Well, that probably is going to be up to the U.S. Attorney for Illinois. And I imagine that the same pressure that was brought to bear on the Chicago prosecutor is being brought to bear on that person as well.
Michael, this guy, Jesse Smollett, was literally trying to start a race war.
Yeah, then that may have been the issue.
Trying to start a race war.
That may have been the larger issue. Right. Now, Jesse is saying this, it was all about getting more money from Empire. He thought he was going to be let go from the show, which turned out to be inaccurate, although they did kick him off the last 2 episodes of the current season. But the reason so much was being brought to bear to get him off the hook is that he may have been part of this larger agenda of trying to kick up a race war in the streets of this country. And if so, they had to get him out of there before he could say, I was told to do this by blah, 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 blah.
There you go. That's a great point. But, Michael, this guy, Smollett, okay, what he did was unprecedented in our history. I don't think it's ever happened in American history like this. And there you go. I mean, this guy, he'll be speaking at the DNC, Michael, in 2 years. He'll be
You're
speaking
probably
at the
right.
DNC, He'll be speaking at the DNC, telling them how bad Donald Trump supporters are and Donald Trump. This to me is the biggest travesty, the biggest conspiracy that it was 10 times worse than the Russia collusion. 10 times worse than the Russia collusion, maybe 100 times. Because this guy literally was trying to say all Donald Trump supporters are racist. This guy was trying to start a race war. Could you imagine if 10, 20 white males or females have been murdered by some drive-by because of this guy?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, you got to look at this big picture. This guy was trying to start a race war, okay? And the Democrats are all trying to start a race war. Pelosi, all those pigs over there are trying to start race wars with the American public. Matter of fact, you had a couple of people that were talking 3-4 months ago on MSLSD and ABC and all that. Oh, this could lead to a race war. You don't hear about that in the media no more. Why is that?
Well, because they failed. I mean, I remember when there were these earlier confrontations. There was the oh God, I hate getting old. My memory's getting bad. The Zimmerman shooting, Trayvon Martin, and when the guy was acquitted, everybody said there's going to be riots in every street in America, in every city in America. Didn't happen. In fact, the corporate media was caught staging an act of violence just so they could have a picture of somebody throwing a trash can through a window in a store. And what was really funny is it was a brand new from the hardware store trash can, and we knew they had to buy it and bring it with them because the real trash bins there on the street are bolted into the concrete. And it was, it is, there does seem to be an agenda to basically just fan up racial tensions to keep America divided and angry with itself. And I would encourage everybody, you know, white, black, red, peach, taupe, mauve, plaid, don't fall for it. You're being suckered. We should all remember we're Americans. We are all Americans, and we should unite together as Americans and confront the real problem with our lives, and that is an out-of-control and corrupt central government, and not fall for all these stunts to keep us divided against each other, black against white, Christians against Muslim, men against women, LGBTQ against the straights. It's all divide and conquer. They're just trying to chop us up so that we represent less of a threat to them. Anyway, listen, Tom,
Michael,
I got to let you go.
Michael, one more thing. A perfect example is Sandman. Look what they tried to do to this young kid and all these white kids at that Catholic school, and you had these black Israelis calling all these white kids a bunch of lily white crackers. Can you imagine if the white kids would have turned that around?
Tom, I got to let you go. Tom, I got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, do you remember this legislation, the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act? This is a bill that says that if a baby survives a late-term abortion and is born alive, that it has to be treated as a human being. It has to be given medical care. It's a citizen. It has all the rights of being a citizen. And to me, that sounds like a really reasonable thing to do. But the House Democrats are opposed to it. And this is like the 20th time they have blocked an attempt to bring it to the floor for a vote. So here we have the same Democrats who are always whining about, oh, those poor children at the southern border, they're just suffering so much, we have to do something. And at the same time, they're out there, well, yeah, just throw the baby in the trash. Maybe it's the wrong kind of baby. Maybe that's part of the plan to change the demographics of the United States to truly make it a third world nation. Okay, we have another caller on the line. Mark in Philadelphia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Mike. The subject is Israel and the F-35. Recently, on military.com was posted a new posting that the Marines and the Navy still deem the F-35 not combat ready, not up to par. But what's interesting about this is you got to wonder. Now, Lockheed Martin is an American corporation.
Yes.
Yeah. But I called into your show months back and told you that I believe that the fix is in, that they have a fix, that the whole design was they get the good ones because theirs are working. The F-35 in Israel is working very well. Elsbit Systems has got a lot of electronics. They're a subcontractor to Lockheed even for the electronics part of that. So here's another one. I was in the Navy, and I worked at the intermediate level of maintenance, which is where you break it down to the box, to the module, to the part, and you repair or replace. But then they have a depot level, which is where they can completely rework a aircraft from the airframe on up. So what I just learned is that Lockheed has a depot level maintenance facility in Israel. Now the part about that is it's an American company. The depot level should be over here in America, not over there.
I agree.
The other part of it is that employs a lot of people that with high-paying jobs. The guys that work at depot level are getting paid really well. They're experts at whatever they do, and so I'm against that. But I say that from the beginning, the design of the F-35 was designed to suck money out of us and to put a substandard to give us the ones with the glitch, but they have the fix already wired in. And so that if we were to oppose them with this superior aircraft, this has got a superior stealth capacity and weapon systems. But the thing is if theirs is better, if we have a glitch and they don't, then they could flip a switch and make ours go down. I'm telling you, I don't trust them. So.
Well, I'm in agreement with that, but I want to back up to something that you said before. We've got the Marines and the Navy saying the F-35 is not combat worthy. Now, combat implies going head-to-head with an equivalent aircraft, and Israel is not using the F-35 in that manner. They're basically flying the F-35 along a border, firing some missiles at people, then they skedaddle. They haven't gotten into any dogfights, and they haven't until the advent of the S-300s, they haven't had to deal with a serious air defense system. And I noticed since the S-300 came on in, the F-35s are staying on the ground. So I hesitate to conclude that even with all of this additional work that Israel is doing on the F-35, it may still not be combat worthy even in Israel.
Well, and my understanding is that the F-35 is not designed for dogfights. It's designed for stealth capacity to deliver a blow at a distance and not be detected. So when I say combat, I mean they can't. It's not operable for them to use it as the function for which it's designed. Whereas Israel, I think, is using it in that function. But anyway, the other thing I want to touch on is this whole deal about the Smollett case, and that's this. I believe that the whole thing was designed from the beginning: problem, reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. Okay, and now they've taken it away. They've dismissed the case where the law doesn't apply to the black people that act up. Okay, just in the same way that the law didn't apply to two guys that walked into a Starbucks here in Philadelphia and stood there, didn't order a thing. The police came and asked them to leave, and they wouldn't leave, so they arrested them. Which I would never do that. I would never go into a place of business and not order something, just stand there and take up space. If they asked me to leave, I'd leave. First of all, I wouldn't even stand there and not order anything. But that whole thing went down, and they didn't get prosecuted. Matter of fact, they got paid. They got paid by Starbucks, and they also got paid by the city, and they also got jobs. Each of the two guys got jobs. So what it's trying to do, and there's people behind this. I think it's an organized group behind them to set this whole thing up to create the race tension.
Yes.
And there's, it's just, what else is it? It's just ridiculous. And the gig is up. We see your game, guys, whoever you are, you evil sons of guns, and we're not buying it. So anyway, I'll leave it at that, Mike. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And let's see. Boy, we're almost to the end of the show, and I'm just now getting to the economic news here. Apparently, San Francisco is one of the few places in America where software engineers who earn hundreds of thousands of dollars a year routinely suffer the indignity of accidentally stepping in a steaming pile of human feces as they exit their crappy, overpriced one-bedroom apartments in the Mission District to grab a $20 burrito and a $10 latte. And basically, they're looking at the issue of the super rich dominating a widening U.S. wealth divide, and the fact that wealth inequality is a major problem. It absolutely is. And the gap between the middle class and the wealthy is widening in pretty much every city. But San Francisco's super rich tech industry basically just makes it worse. So anyway. Here's an interesting little article. This is Truth Theory, and it says that a recent study has shown that wealthy and powerful people are more likely to lie, cheat, and steal. And my response to that is, how do you think they got to be rich and powerful in the first place? I mean, we're seeing, all these politicians who are hit with all these scandals, all these Wall Street executives who are caught engaging in all these frauds. It was rather interesting. Wolf of Wall Street was on TV again last night. True story. Might want to look at it. They've made it safe for the kiddies. They've got little black squares on the naughty bits on the girls. Another story coming out of here from Investment Watch blog. 50,000 warehouses are getting ready to deploy robots. And I understand they want to make their operation more economical. But again, this is a bad direction to be going, because each one of those robots is displacing a human worker. And that's one more human worker who's on welfare or assistance or out of a job. And we're heading toward a world where we're going to have robot sales clerks standing in shopping malls filled with all kinds of wonderful things made by robots and delivered by robots. And they're going to be standing there with nothing to do because nobody's got the money to come in and buy the products. That's where this is heading. Over in, New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy has signed, believe it or not, a rain tax bill. And that means that residents of New Jersey will now be taxed for the amount of rain that falls on their property. And supposedly the money is to be kept to deal with flood control. But it's a ridiculous precedent to tax people for something that is totally, completely beyond their control. All right, Acting Pentagon Chief Patrick Shanahan has authorized $1 billion to build part of the wall sought by Donald Trump along the U.S.-Mexico border. The first funds designated for the project under the president's emergency declaration, which is still being opposed by people in Congress. So the Department of Homeland Security asked the Pentagon to build 57 miles of 18-foot fencing, construct and improve roads, and install lighting to support the Trump emergency declaration. So they're starting to move on that. There was that other company that came on in and said, we can build an effective wall for much less money. And I think they should be throwing this open to open bidding to see what they can do. But again, the way you stop the illegal alien problem is you cut off the flow of free stuff. You don't give them driver's licenses. You certainly don't give them voter registration cards. All of this free stuff that is being handed out, it's a lure. That's what's drawing these people up here. They're not poor refugees fleeing the evils of their own society. Or maybe if they are, they should turn around and go back and fix the evils in their society. That's the thing to do. Our society has gotten very evil. Okay, Claire and I are not trying to sneak across the border into Canada. We're trying to do something about it. Apparently, over this last weekend, another 1,100 border crossers and illegal aliens were released into the U.S. They have run out of room to hold these people while they wait for their asylum paperwork to be processed. The whole thing is just messed up, and it's designed to flood this country with illegal immigrants that the Democrats are counting on to sweep the elections in 2020. And Donald Trump has got to do something about it. He's got to do a modern, updated version of Operation Wetback. He's got to basically clean up that idea of non-citizens being allowed to vote in this country. It's time to have a national voter ID law. And of course, the Democrats will oppose it. He should have done it when he had full control of the Congress. You missed your opportunity there, Don. Over in Great Britain, things are getting really chaotic regarding Brexit. And apparently, Parliament has decided to take the process out of Theresa May's hand. And they voted to accept an amendment that basically changes the rules. And Parliament backed the amendment by 329 to 302 to allow time for what is called indicative votes on the finer points of the beleaguered Brexit deal. Now, yesterday, May gave up on her third attempt to push a Brexit deal through, leaving Britain looking at a no-deal Brexit, which I don't think is going to be as horrific as the Remainers keep claiming. And British Trade Minister Liam Fox saying there's a bigger disconnect now between Westminster and the country than ever before. And there's still talk about how there may be a way to prevent Brexit from happening at all. You do that, there'll be yellow vests in the streets of Great Britain. There is also a story, and this one came out of the Express in Great Britain, that tomorrow Theresa May will announce the date that she will step down. So we'll see what's going to happen on that. All right, let's grab another phone call here from Miles in Maine. Aloha, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to know, I thought I'd check with you if you might recall this, either last year or perhaps the year before. Israel had this bill before Congress, I believe it was, and I'm not sure what all it happened. I don't believe it passed, but something to the effect of where they wanted to have their people and citizens be able to come here without a passport? Do you recall anything like that?
No, they still have a passport. What they waived was the visa requirement. Just having a passport doesn't allow you to go anywhere in the world. Most countries require you to apply for a visa, so they basically know that you're coming. And the bill that you're talking about basically said that Israelis could come and go to the United States without the visas.
Right, that's exactly it. Now, this is what I wanted to ask you, with your knowledge of what you have on the situation here. Could this New Zealand shooter have been a benefactor of something like that?
Well, I mean, basically, he was traveling all over the place, so I don't know what his passport said or even which passport it was. In theory, he's Australian, but we're getting a lot of conflicting information about it. I don't know how he would have been a benefactor of that directly. We do know that Israeli intelligence does do a lot of stuff in New Zealand. There have been problems before with New Zealand complaining to Israel about Israeli agents stealing New Zealand passports to be able to use to go around the world doing bad things. So definitely there's that aspect.
Does any nation that you know of have any regulation like that where people can just come in and go like that? Does anybody?
Oh yeah,
that
many do.
have them?
Many do. The United States, Canada, you don't require a visa. To go to Mexico, you don't require a visa. You just have your passport. Great Britain, and at least back when I was working there, Germany and Italy did not require visas, just a passport.
Okay, well, thanks, Michael. I just thought I'd check with you since you obviously have a lot more knowledge on that than me, so I thought I'd get your opinion. Thank you very much, and keep up the good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And, well, Mike, I'm not getting the feed on this computer either, so we're just going to keep on going. So a lot of people are concerned that a no-deal Brexit would impact the British and Irish economies. Gold is gaining on the recession concerns. Not today. Gold was definitely down. I think the fear of a no-deal Brexit is just, I think it's more propaganda than real. And I think it's all coming from the Remainers. Now, somebody did a poll in Great Britain, and they polled the Leave voters and the Remain voters, and they found one thing on which they almost unanimously agree, and that is that the British government has handled Brexit horribly. That it's been a muck-up from day one. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. Airoutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. Airoutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to Airoutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. And when Italy announced that they were going to join with China's One Belt project, sometimes known as the New Silk Road, Germany criticized them. That was a terrible thing to do. Well, apparently Germany has had a change of heart, and now Germany is saying that all of Europe should join China's One Belt, One Road project. And that's got to be making U.S. economists very, very nervous, because we don't have anything that can compete with it. I mean, there are some ships involved, very fast cargo ships that China has invested in. But the main backbone, of course, is a rail and road system that follows the old Silk Road. And it connects Asia with Europe and allows for both regions to share products with each other, conduct commerce much more quickly and less expensively than the traditional route of loading it all on a cargo ship and sending it basically around the south part of the Asian continent. And so you're going to see Europe doing more commerce with China because everything's going to be less expensive, and it's going to leave U.S. businesses in even more trouble than they are now, because we don't have high-speed cargo ships. We've got nifty aircraft carriers and stealth destroyers and littoral combat ships, but they don't carry a lot of cargo. Yesterday we reported on how France's President Macron had made this weird comment about the 73-year-old yellow vest protester who sustained a fractured skull after being knocked over by riot police who were charging demonstrators. And Genevieve Leguet was taken to the hospital, and Macron came on out saying that, you know, when you're fragile and risk being shoved, you don't go to places that are declared off limits, and you don't put yourself in that kind of situation, and maybe you will gain wisdom from this. Needless to say, it has triggered a firestorm of outrage and protest for these patronizing comments, an apparent unwillingness to accept that it was the riot police who injured this person. Over in Holland, the climate skeptic right-wing party wins big in their elections. And apparently they're making great gains. They're also Eurosceptic. All right. All right. Now, this is from Sibel Edmonds, and it was what I was talking about earlier, that everywhere this accused shooter went, there were almost the exact same terror warnings. And she's saying it's beyond coincidence. And this may be the reason that New Zealand has panicked and banned the video, the manifesto, and even the man's name. They've accidentally exposed an operation, a covert operation. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. Steve Elkins is taking over the microphone for John Stadmiller for the next show, so please tune into him. He's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here, share it with everyone that you know. Email, paper mail, face-to-face. Forget social media. It's totally co-opted right now. And please donate to Republic Broadcasting. They need it. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. We need it. It's a very, very tight month indeed. So have a good evening. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.